Hello, it's Claire from Come Back Brighter here. I just popped on today because I've just realised something, and I can provide an example. And I think this is a really important thing to realise, and that is that with a narcissist, you can't win. So whatever you do is used against you. Okay, so I've been thinking about, in particular, the death of my grandmother, and in the way that my mother told me that my grandmother had died. Okay, so my grandmother went into hospital with a broken arm and basically never came out again. So she went in like healthy. The only problem was her broken arm, which was an accident. She fell over, and she never came back out again. So the whole process was, I think, easily described as torturous. And my mother she just came into my bedroom and she just said, I didn't call her grandmother or granny, we called her Nanny. She said, Nanny died last night. And then she turned on her heel and walked out again. And I've been thinking about this because that's not the only time she did something like that. And what I've been thinking about was that whatever my reaction was, she would gain from it. So I didn't cry when she told me. I wanted to, but I didn't. And plus the fact she left the room. So it was clear that there was going to be no support for me. Okay. And I think a lot of this is about, I'm really working through the lack of emotional support that I had when I was a child, going through some quite traumatic and devastating life events when I was a child that I had no support for. But anyway, going back to that anything I did, I couldn't win. So I decided that I was just going to act like everything was normal. I was devastated. And the reason why she would win was, if I cried, she could ignore me or make her sorrow bigger than mine by saying that she'd lost her mother. She could laugh at me. She could tell me that I was being overdramatic. She could, basically, she could do everything to make me feel wrong for crying, and doing everything the opposite of offering me the support that I needed. So she won then, because then she could actually, first of all, she could see my tears. And I think that she would actually take an active pleasure in relishing my sadness and then ignoring it, or abusing me for it. Okay. Or that was if I cried. Okay. And that was the same in my family. So if any time I cried, which I didn't do very often, and it was only when I couldn't stop it, that was the only times I ever cried in front of my family, I was treated with contempt by all of them. And it could have been in different ways, and it depended how they were feeling, how they would treat me. So again, it would be the ignoring me. They would laugh at me. They would say I was being overdramatic. They would say I was being manipulative. That was how my father viewed tears. Tears were a means to get what I wanted. But I don't quite know how that would apply to the death of my grandmother. But that's how he would twist things. And my brother was the same. He would more frequently ignore me. And each of them seemed to relish the ways in which they were not supporting me. Okay. So that was what would happen if I'd cried. But if I hadn't cried, then my mother's smear campaign could continue against me. And she could tell everybody what a heartless little bitch I was, because I hadn't even cried when she told me that my grandmother was dead. So because of the nature of my grandmother's death, I don't know what happened. I don't know what she died of. It was a very long, drawn out process. It was very stressful. It was terrible for my grandmother, and it was terrible for every member of the family. So my mum had, and of course it meant that to a certain extent our life was kind of a bit upside down. So our daily life in the village where I lived was upside down, and my mum then would have to explain maybe if we weren't in school or what was happening. So everybody knew what was happening, okay? And everybody would ask my mum how her mother was doing. So my mum was getting a lot of attention for this. And I'm sure that she used the opportunity at every single time to tell people what a heartless little bitch I was, because that's the other thing. She started this whole thing off, and apparently she told everybody. And I don't know how I heard this, but I must have overheard this, and I shouldn't have been party to this. I shouldn't have heard this. She told everybody that I laughed when my grandmother fell over and broke her arm. And now, I'm not that kind of person. I might have laughed if I thought she was like trying to be funny, a bit slapsticky, but I certainly wouldn't have laughed out of any maliciousness or because she hurt herself. She seriously hurt herself. But this is a story my mother was telling. So that was feeding into the whole smear campaign that she's conducted against me for my entire life, of what a heartless little vindictive, malicious little bitch I am. Okay. And she used that opportunity of my grandmother's death to further her smear campaign. So I'm telling you this because I've been writing about it. Okay. And I've kind of written a story about it. And I'm kind of piecing together a lot of memories like this. And what I'm really truly understanding is that however you behave, a narcissist uses against you. Because whatever you do, in some way, they will turn it round to further their own evil agenda against you. And it is evil. Because there was nothing about my mother's behavior when my grandmother died that was good. I knew that she wouldn't support me. I knew that if I cried, the fallout from that, the way I would be treated, was worse than stuffing it down. I knew that because this is what had happened previously. I'm not making this up. I was 14 when my grandmother died, so I'd had 14 years to work out that if I was sad and I was crying, this is what would happen. They would ignore me, all the things. They wouldn't give me the support that I needed. And I would I'd preferred to stuff down those feelings, keep them to myself, than to have the abuse from my family if I showed that I was sad. But conversely, if I didn't show I was sad, she would use that against me as well and further her agenda against me with all the people that we knew, with all that attention she was getting for her mother being ill. She was profiting from it by continuing the smear campaign against me. So it really makes me wonder about what people thought about me, because all the things that they've been told are absolute lies, and they might be like loosely based on the truth. So I didn't cry when she told me that my grandmother died. That's true. That's a fact. But there's like this thing unsaid behind it. So for me, the reason unsaid was because I knew that I wouldn't get the support I needed. And not only that, I would be abused for it. But the other thing in brackets that other people might hear is, what a little bitch she is. What a heartless, uncaring child she is. And this is compounding the story that they've been told all this time before. And I know that the smear campaign was against me and my family. I know that because my family were very distant with me. It didn't make sense. And I saw them quite a lot. I mean, my extended family. And I wonder then how teachers and other people that saw me in another context, how they thought about me compared to the poison that my mum was dripping in their ears and the child that they saw every day at school, the child that they saw interacting. That I can't understand. So I just wanted to explain that to you, because that applies in any circumstance. Okay, so whatever you do, it will be used against you in one way or another. And it might be in the case of like when my grandmother died, my reaction, if I'd cried, my reaction was going to be used against me personally. Okay, it was going to be like the shark smelling the blood, right? There's a weakness here. She's sad. Let's go for her. And all of them would pile on me in different ways, to abuse me further, to make me feel worse. Okay, as soon as that vulnerability was shown, as soon as I showed that I was sad, each of them would do their thing to make me feel that they don't care about, they don't support me. And in some ways, actually, they hated me, because I don't know how anyone can see a child upset and think that's the time to attack, that's the time to profit from it, to abuse them. It's a complete, like, incomprehensible level of heartlessness there. But if I didn't do anything, that was used against me with other people. So whatever I did, they got their fix from either abusing me directly. In the case of if I cried, they abused me directly. And if I didn't cry, then they would spread their abuse about me to other people and use that as the opportunity to further their agenda by painting me out to be this horrible, vindictive, malicious little bitch. And this would have been previous to 14 as well. This would have been the whole of my lifetime. So I want you to understand that, because I think that gives you a greater level of comprehension of what it is that you're actually dealing with when it comes to a narcissist. Is that we spend all our time thinking, if I do this ... everything will be okay. Okay, or even worse, and even more time consuming and like energy draining, is if I had done ... everything would have been okay. So we always think that we're responsible for what's gone wrong, whatever it might be, the fracture of the relationship, the argument that we've had, the unpleasantness that's going on. We think we're responsible for it. But the truth is, the narcissist is the opportunist, and they will take and use whatever their scapegoat does and to use it against them. They will twist it, they will contort it, they will put their evil agenda on it, and they will use it to serve their own purpose. So to a certain extent, it doesn't matter what you do. What you do is not the key point here. What the key point is how the narcissist takes it and twists it and uses it for their own evil agenda, either to directly abuse you or to further their smear campaign against you. This is what they do. So I really want you to understand that to a certain extent, the control of the situation, or how it all works out, is out of our control, because you're dealing with somebody whose agenda, it truly is, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, is your destruction. They want to destroy you. And I've gone through narcissistic parents, right? So I would have been tiny the first time I cried. Okay, and this might have been when I was an infant, when I was a newborn baby. I might have been ignored when I cried as a baby. Okay, just my basic needs. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I need my nappy changing. I might have been ignored when I cried then. But I know for sure, past that point, if I cried, I fell over, I cried, or I was just feeling sad, something had happened and I felt sad, I know that I was ignored. And this applies for a narcissist. If it's not a narcissistic parent that you're involved with, if it's a narcissistic partner, they will do exactly the same to a child. And I can't comprehend how an adult can use a child's sadness against them. And for me, it takes them to a whole new level of evil, that they can do that. They see it as an opportunity. They see it as an opportunity to abuse that child, or to further their own agenda to make that child look bad. And that's when it like blows out of the water for me. That's when I can't comprehend, because it's one thing as 14 years old to be going through this, and 14 you still need support, absolutely, 100%. 40 you still need support, okay, but 14 is older. But it's just occurring to me as I'm doing this video that this at 14 I knew well enough. I would have gone through several experiences in my lifetime. Potentially this started when I was like a year old, 2 years old, whatever it was, very, very young. So I learned that this is what happens when I cry. And the 14-year-old me knew enough to know it's not worth it to cry. It's worse for you if you cry. And it's not just about being emotionally upset. It's about every single circumstance. It could be like the bigger thing. It could be like something like you've got a new job. And for you, it's like a career progression, or you're starting a new business, whatever. For you, it's something big and exciting, and it's something maybe you've wanted for a long time, something that you've worked towards, something that you've got qualifications for. They will take that and they will destroy that. I have a client who was very, very proud of what she'd achieved, despite her parents, despite their lack of support and their sabotaging her. And on her graduation day, her mother looked at her and sneered and said, "You must have slept with the professor to get your degree." So it's about the small things too. And it's not just when you're celebrating something, it's when you're going through a stressful time too. Whatever their smear campaign is against you, they will use your sad times and your happy times and just the times when everything's normal to further their agenda. They will take something you've done, so it's based in truth, but they will twist it and they will lie about it and they will exaggerate it and they will let other people paint their own picture of you. But that picture is one that the narcissist has already described to them over the years. And that's if they don't abuse you directly to your face. So whatever you do, the narcissist will find a way to use it against you. And that is why you will never win. It's not dependent on your actions. You are completely out of control of this. You are coming to this relationship. You want it to work. You love them. You care for them. You support them. You do all the things. You're fighting to make this work. And all they're seeing is everything that happens to you is an opportunity for them to either abuse you or to smear you to other people. So this is out of your control. And I think that potentially what happens is, I don't know what point you're at in your journey, but you realize the complete futility of it. It doesn't matter what I do. I learned, I remember my father asking me, "What do you want to do today? We're going out for the day. What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go to the House of Marbles." And this was like, I didn't even really know what it was, but I liked the shop because it had all beautiful hand blown glass things, all different colors, and marbles were really colorful, and I love that kind of thing. And I didn't really care what we did, because I knew that the chances were we weren't going to be able to do that thing. Okay. And this was before No Contact. So I was like an adult. I think I was married, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen. And then my parents went on this really long, convoluted thing where we stopped for coffee and they couldn't quite remember where it was. And was it in this town? And was it down this road? And they couldn't quite remember where it was. And then before I know it, it's the end of the day and we didn't make it to the House of Marbles, it was all completely contrived by both of them. They both did it together. And I didn't care enough. I didn't care enough to check on my phone. I didn't care enough I was just like, yeah, you want to play your silly games. I don't care. I don't care. And I think that's eventually what happens is you start to realize what it is that you're playing with. Or playing with? No, what they're playing with. They're playing this game with you, their twisted game. and you don't want to play anymore. You don't want to participate. You don't want to put any of yourself into it. So my father would have relished it, and my mother too, if I'd been disappointed about us not going to the House of Marbles, because they made so much effort. They made so much effort to make sure that we didn't go. So that's just like a silly little example, but it just shows you. And that's where I was like, there was absolutely no emotional investment from me whatsoever about going to the House of Marbles. But can you imagine how much they would have fed from it if it had been something that was really, really important to me? If it had been something that meant something emotionally to me, the kick that they would have got, the reward they would have got from thwarting my attempts to do that thing would have been massive. It would have been directly in proportion. So the more you're emotionally connected to the incident that you're going through or the thing that you want to do, the more the narcissist will gain when they make sure that thing doesn't happen. It's all in proportion. So my father no doubt thought he had a great victory because when we didn't go to the House of Marbles, but I was like, I don't care. I don't care. We got out of the house. I didn't care. But when you apply that to other things in your life, when you are asking them for support and for their help, then they will do everything they can to sabotage it. And that's their help and support to celebrate or to help you during a stressful time. They will do all they can to make it even worse for you. And the more stressful, the more emotionally connected you are to it, the worse they will make it. So my advice is, if you're still in contact with a narcissist, then don't involve them. Don't tell them what matters to you. Don't ask them for help or support or for like congratulations. Don't share this stuff with them because they're only going to use it against you. I hope that this helps. If you need support, please reach out to me, Clare, CLARE, comebackbrighter @gmail.com.